Hey everyone! So today I wanted to do a video on my hypnosis for childbirth classes that my husband and I took. There were 4 classes. There was one extra one on nursing, so I might include that one. But there's a ton of information in each class, so I'm probably going to be doing a couple videos to cover everything. So we'll get started. So if you're like me, when I first heard of hypnobirthing, I thought it was something like hippie or when you see a hypnosis stage act or someone looking at a watch being swung in front of them and falling asleep. This is nothing like that. Basically, it's putting yourself into a deep, relaxed state to make you calmer and more comfortable. That's basically what it is. You are fully conscious, and it's kind of hard to explain, but you are definitely not sleeping. Now, using hypnosis for childbirth is kind of like, how do I explain this? There's different kind of names that are patented for using hypnosis for childbirth. It's kind of like laundry detergent. It's a broad category, but then you've got Tide, All, Arm & Hammer. So there's a couple main types of using hypnosis for childbirth. One is called hypnobirthing. That's normally kind of what I call it, even though the class that I took was called hypnosis for childbirth. But there's also Hypnobabies. I first heard about hypnosis for childbirth or hypnobirthing through a documentary called The Business of Being Born. I would highly recommend this documentary. It has a ton of great information, and I really learned a lot, and it caused me to do a bunch of research on just births, C-sections, just kind of what's going on in our country in the hospitals. So I would recommend that. So many of the women who use this technique often report that they don't feel any pain at all. And I found this, when I first heard this, I was like, that is unbelievable. I did not think that that was possible. So I looked up a bunch of videos on hypnobirthing on YouTube, and I was absolutely amazed at what I saw. Throughout the whole birth, these women were calm, and they didn't look like they were in pain. But a lot of them, like I said, do report that they just feel a bunch of pressure. I am not counting on feeling no pain. I do want to have realistic expectations, but I definitely think that the hypnosis for childbirth class is going to help me be more relaxed and thus be more comfortable during my labor. If you are interested in looking up some videos online, you can just look up Hypnobirthing or Hypnobabies. I will also link a couple of my favorite videos in the description box below, and if you're interested, you can take a look at those. Okay, so for class 1, there was a lot of information, pardon me as I look down at my notes a lot, but I'll kind of just go through the outline for what she did and kind of give more details on that. The first thing that she talked about was how our culture influences what we believe about birth, and this is one of the things I first heard about when I watched the documentary, The Business of Being Born, because if you think about it, like all the movies, anything that has to do with birth or giving birth, it's always it seems like with a woman screaming, obviously in a lot of pain, and because of that it projects this picture of fear and pain to the rest of us. So I know for me, I am scared of pain. I do not like pain. So that's kind of one of the things that I am scared of with birth. But that's obviously, it's one of the things that, a lot of women think of when they think of birth. And because of this projection of pain, it is often assumed that women are going to get an epidural. Now, let me just pause here and say that I am not saying you should not get an epidural. I'm planning on having a natural childbirth. I totally understand, though, that different women's bodies respond differently to, you know, how baby's positioned. There's a lot of factors that play into it. Who knows? I mean, depending on how things go, I may end up getting an epidural. I hope not. I would like to have a natural birth, but I just want you to know I'm not saying the epidurals are bad. But in today's society, it is pretty much assumed in the US that you're going to be getting an epidural. Actually, the first hospital that I went to, the first doctor that I went to before going to the midwives at my current hospital, he basically told me, I understand that you don't want an epidural, but as soon as I get in the room, I'm going to offer you one. So, a lot of hospitals, it seems, pride themselves on their, the amount of epidurals that they give. And kind of along those lines, even just like talking to friends and family, like you tell them, I want to have a natural childbirth, and they just think you're crazy. Basically, our culture in the U.S. treats birth as something that needs to be treated, or, you know, something that, you know, isn't normal. Whereas, you know, one thing that I've appreciated about this hypnosis class is that it kind of changed my perspective. You know, giving birth is normal. And, you know, women have been doing it throughout the ages. And obviously, you know, just I've seen a lot with the hypnosis for childbirth. And, you know, women can do it relatively comfortably without all of these interventions. And one of a couple of the statistics that our instructor gave us, which I thought were really interesting, is that about 45% of women are induced. And this was actually, I think, this is an old statistic, so who knows, it could be higher. But about 45% of women are induced, and a little over 30% of women get C-sections. So I thought that was really interesting, and I think kind of supports the idea that in the U.S. It's kind of seen that birth needs to be treated, and it's not a normal occurrence like it is. So that's kind of what I got out of the whole what our culture is telling us about birth, and that's what I have seen as well. So she talked a lot about physiology, and so again, I'm kind of a nerd. I think this is really, really interesting, and the physiology of it kind of helped me realize how normal birth is, and that my body knows what to do, even if, you know, I don't know what to do, but my body will do it anyways. So basically we have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, the parasympathetic nervous system is what we are in most of the time, just kind of day in, day out. The sympathetic nervous system is more fight or flight. So hopefully we shouldn't be in that one very much at all. But obviously the sympathetic nervous system with the fight or flight is obviously where we get adrenaline. And if you think about it, when you're in fight or flight, the blood supply leaves your internal viscera and kind of goes to your legs, maybe your arms in case you need to fight or flight. And that is typically bad for a laboring woman because when basically the internal viscera of a laboring woman is her uterus. So when the blood supply leaves, it just causes the uterus to function poorly. So with the parasympathetic nervous system, the main hormone for labor is oxytocin. So basically that promotes the uterus to contract and thinning of the cervix and opening of the cervix and whatnot. So I will say there is a small portion of time, hopefully it's just a small portion of time, that the sympathetic nervous system and adrenaline are activated in a laboring woman, and that's right before she pushes, because obviously you need the energy to push. So hopefully it's limited to that. Things my instructor kind of talked about too was just the concept of not disturbing a laboring woman, because there have been cases a lot of times when you know, a woman's labor is progressing and then she gets to the hospital and then it stops or even regresses. So basically she attributed that to, the fight or flight response being stimulated and adrenaline release, so it can actually cause your labor to stop. So it's obviously much better if you can just stay relaxed, stay in your parasympathetic nervous system, and promote oxytocin release. So basically that shows that oxytocin release can be influenced by external stimuli. Being bombarded with questions, it can decrease and whatnot. One of the other things that she pointed out, she referenced a couple of studies and which noted that oxytocin is present with a profound sense of well-being. And some of these times are like when you're having dinner with friends, when you're laughing, and when you're making love. So all these things promote oxytocin release. So I don't know if you guys have heard, but I think that's where they got the whole idea of that you're encouraged to like kiss your husband or partner or whatever, because it promotes the release of oxytocin. So one of the other things that she touched on was our internal perception. Now this is the only thing that we have control over really in any situation, is how we perceive it. So for example, like those women that I talked about in the YouTube videos who were giving birth, their internal perception was pressure, obviously not pain. So basically what you think can really influence what you feel or how you feel. Okay, so next she gave kind of a history of what hypnosis, where it came from, where it started, and whatnot. I didn't think that was quite as interesting, so I won't spend too much time on that. But the definition that she gave of hypnosis was focused concentration in an altered state of mind. Again, basically, you're just focusing on something else that helps you to relax. A lot of the prompts in the CDs that she gave us to listen to are like telling you to go to a happy place, or picture yourself on a beach with sun, and basically you're just focusing on something else. So basically, laboring women can use hypnosis to kind of alter or influence their perceptions, their internal perceptions, and thus the whole physiological process that goes on. Because if you're in a more relaxed state, then you're going to be releasing more oxytocin, and thus promoting progression of labor and such. And kind of along those lines she touched on was positive thinking. So she actually recommends kind of making up a story of what your ideal birth would be, not obviously to be set in stone, because it's most likely not going to happen just like you want or just like you think, but just to kind of get those positive emotions or anchors fixed. And the way that she words it is creating a neurological imprint. So when you're telling yourself, I'm going to, be in labor for 4 hours or whatever, I hope to be 7 centimeters dilated, and just kind of going along the whole process, you're creating neurological imprints, and you're creating kind of emotional anchors, so that if you do need to have a cesarean section because your baby is breech or anything, you already have that neurological imprint of well-being, even though it's not going exactly as you wanted to. It helps you to kind of just be flexible even with your, and have a positive internal perception of what's going on, so that you can still promote the release of oxytocin rather than having a fight or flight response. So that pretty much sums it up for class 1. Next we will go to class 2. Okay, so for class 2, she started out by going over the optimal fetal positioning for labor and birth. I'm not going to talk too much about that because it's kind of hard to do without visual aids, and it's hard for me to explain it. But she also gave us some exercises to do to help promote the optimal fetal positioning. Just a couple of them were just like sitting upright in a chair with your legs like at a 90-degree angle instead of like your knees higher than your thighs and whatnot. She also encouraged, walking and stair-stepping and stuff like that. So next she talked about physical relaxation, and one of the main things that she talked about was like relaxing your facial muscles, something called progressive relaxation, which is kind of where you go through your body and tense certain muscle groups and then release them just so that you know what it feels like for them to be relaxed. That way in labor, you obviously don't want to tense your muscles. You want to be completely relaxed, but that way your body already knows, what it feels like for your muscles to be relaxed. And then another physical relaxation technique is using deep abdominal breathing. She recommends like going into a count of 10 and out to a count of 10. And obviously not holding your breath because you need oxygen. And then my personal favorite was the partner massage, that it just felt amazing. Basically what we did is she had the partners stand behind us and basically give us a neck and back massage. And that is supposed to just obviously get us relaxed. And then at the end of that, they do what's called a hypnotic anchor. So basically, my husband would pick up my arm and say when, what does he say? He says, when I drop your hand in your lap, you will go twice as deeply relaxed. And during this, I'm not supposed to hold my arm up. I'm just supposed to completely let him hold the weight. And when he drops my arm, I just let it drop. And that's supposed to just help me get deeper relaxed. Now, when I'm in labor, there obviously may not be time to do, a full massage. So practicing the massage with the anchor at the end helps, again, anchor in the just the emotional state and the relaxation, so that hopefully what happens is all he has to do is the hand drop, and it will just, cue me to relax. Another one of the hypnotic anchors that I'm having my husband do is just kind of when he sees that I'm tense, he can just put his hand on my shoulder and say, relax. I find that I carry a lot of my tension in my shoulders and I just kind of hunch up just without knowing it. And so when he does that, it just, as soon as I feel his hand, I just completely release and relax into it. So another thing kind of along with the partner massage she showed us was the hip squeeze and counter pressure that can be used during labor. We didn't really practice those because they're not really meant for when you're not in labor, but I can see how they would be really comfortable in labor. Okay, so next she talked about positions during labor, and I found this really helpful because, I know nothing. I'm a first-time mom. I don't know what it would take, what would feel comfortable. So she went over like using a Pilates ball in different positions that you can use with that. And then also just kind of having your partner support your weight by leaning forward into them, and they can just kind of have a good base with their legs and hold you up. And I could see how that would be really relaxing as well. Now, she also talked about, she had said quieting the mind exercises, and kind of basically in labor, obviously no one's going to be able to be in a hypnotic state the entire time. So if you have thoughts come up or fears or anything like that, to create a bridge out of those thoughts back into relaxation. And some of the things that she suggests is having like a news ticker, kind of visualizing that. And so if any thoughts pop up, you can place those in the bottom of the news ticker and just be like, I'm not going to think about those right now. And some of the visual aids that she talked about, which I really like this one, is visualizing your uterus opening up like a flower. And I didn't quite get this one at first, but now I do and I really like it. Just kind of with your cervix opening up and visualizing it like a flower. Now, one of the things that we also started doing this week for practice was the partners kind of had a script to talk us basically to get us relaxed. The two things that she pointed out, though, is that obviously in order to get someone relaxed, you're not going to read it like you normally read or just like you're talking, because it's not relaxing. So you need to have intonation of smooth, melodic, and calming, and then your pacing needs to slow down. So you're not going to read it, fast. It's important to make it smooth and melodic so that you kind of promote that relaxing feeling. Now each week she would give us a new CD to listen to and practice. And so at the end of the second class, the CD actually had a bunch of different tracks on it for hypnotic anchors and techniques that we can use for putting ourselves into hypnosis. So that pretty much wraps up classes 1 and 2. Join me next time where I will be going over classes 3, 4, and possibly the nursing class. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Bye!